Forex. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves, what happened today? What does it tell us about the coming days? We do that by looking at trend, qualified trend, supply and demand as seen on the charts. Trend gives us direction. Supply and demand, of course, gives us timing. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains, folks. It was a day of unwind, really. We had the big day up last week. Friday, not day up, but Friday, big volume day. That was quadruple witching, options expiration. So a lot of unwind looked like it was taking place today. We can see that in some of the sectors when we get to them. I'm probably going to have a short show unless there's questions, because there's really not all that much to talk about out here tonight. You can text me 303-912-9110 or email support@tatoday.com. Again, that number is 912-9110 if you want to text in. Of course, you can type in your questions. But in any of those forms, I will take your questions and try to answer them best of my ability. As far as what happened today, well, not much. If we look at the GSPC, which is the S&P 500, I can barely see that bar up there. It's right at the top, hanging at the top. Really nothing happening here. This thing is going up and up and up. So this is like day 8 of the latest move up. Get a little consolidation. I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of a pullback just based on the way this thing acted today. But you know, there's really not that much up here. You didn't get to the highs, you didn't get over it, so it's not even an over under. It wouldn't have been a 2-bar because it's not stretched enough. It's just consolidation. There's really not much more to read into it than that. And if you're reading more into it, you're probably doing yourself a disservice, because then you're seeing things that probably just aren't even there. If we look at the NASDAQ had a pretty quiet day as well. Another doji sitting at the tops. This one actually is over the prior highs. So actually the Friday high, see, the close was 68.68, so just inside of it. So you could call that an over-under, but it just looks like consolidation as well. Russell was the weakest, and it was down a whole 0.2. Everything else was basically flat. Russell actually gets over back under, and the Russell tested into this big bar. 1189.25 was the number. It did it on Friday, I believe. No, just missed it. So it just missed it on Friday. Did hit it today, barely, and quote-unquote failed on it. So that looks like it could actually retrace. So the Russell is the only one giving us any kind of a sign that we may get a retrace, and we know the Russell has been our best indicator of late, and a matter of fact of months now. And so if anything, the Russell is saying, yeah, we can get a little retest. And where would that retest probably take us back to? The support zone that's underneath here. Test back into this high again, and test into that support zone at the same time. So that's the indexes. If I look over at the sectors and what I was talking about with the unwind, if you remember last week, you had some huge moves volume-wise and price-wise in a couple of the safety sectors. XLU was one of them. Well, that thing fades back in hard. Absolutely no volume as it fades back in, though. So what does that tell us? Well, it just tells us it's doing a retest regen off that breakout. And that retest regen, because it's within 6 bars, can get down towards the bottom of this area, and it may do that. The way it went up and the way it's coming back suggests it is going to be bought. So we'll see if there's a trade there if you're interested. The other one was XLP. Same sort of action. Looks almost identical. Doing a retest regenerate, but fails to regenerate. That's the one sector that's given us some sort of a signal, and that's saying, hey, this is a sideways trend instead of a bullish trend up. This thing's probably going to trade sideways for a while. And since you had this big volume push, you got this bar down here with volume on it, that would suggest that you probably got some sort of a range going to set up in that area. So I would be looking for the XLP to trade in some sort of a range for a while. And it may turn out that way on the XLU as well. We'll have to see if it actually fails or not. If you go outside of those, if I look at the worst performing sectors today, IYT was one of them. Really nothing there, just went up towards the top and kind of hung and still hanging. XLI was the next worst one. That one also really just couldn't do anything and doesn't look bad. So you get up, you pull down. You know, if anything, it's a little range up there, but still no real signals here. XLK has been the leader on the way up. That one actually had a down day on Friday, inside day today. That one really tells us nothing. XLF is the one we've really been watching because the XLF is such a big part of the S&P 500. It's trying to get up to that high again and get over it. That's going to be the test. It's pushing there with pretty good volume. If you're a classical versus a neoclassical, you could kind of envision a cupping handle type situation here. So XLF looking okay. If I look at the other sector that has been giving us trouble and it's been, you know, having a tough time is XLY. That one really didn't do anything today either. Back under, back over, so what? Doesn't really tell us anything. Moving over to the OX markets, TLT doesn't tell us anything. Is that a common theme tonight? Nothing telling us much of anything. We've got a couple little potential pullback type signals, but outside of that, there really just isn't much out there. Silver and gold, silver still hanging at the high. Silver had an over-under 2-bar reversal on Friday. Today was an inside day. I think you're going to see silver give it up and come back down. Gold may test that top. If it doesn't, it's more bullish. You'd like to see it just retrace without doing so. If I look over at what drew our attention to that big spike up in gold last week before it happened, the night before, it was the GDX and GDXJ. Here's the GDXJ. Still holding the gap area, less volume today. We could get another test of the tops, but these look like they want to take a little bit of a rest. GDXJ actually over that top. So one of them saying, hey, might want to take a rest. The other one saying, hey, I can push higher. I suspect you're going to see these slow down, though. They've already had huge moves. They've overrun their ABCD structures on the way up. And that usually ends up coming back, and coming back pretty hard when it finally makes the retrace. So gold, silver, they still look fine. They just need to retrace, or at least go sideways and work things off. Bonds, nada, telling us nothing. If I look at the currency markets, FXE really doing nothing, UUP doing nothing, right? So nothing happening here on currencies. The only place that we saw any real action today was in the natural gas. So like UNL, which is spread over 6 months, you can see it coming down pretty hard today. And if you look at the oil market actually came off finally today a little bit. So that says, for at least for me, the geopolitical not as bad when nat gas and oil are dropping. Those are kind of the updates, if you will, as to what's happening. Let's look overseas because there was a bunch more happening overseas than was happening here. Let's start in Europe. Remember we had volume on Friday off the CACs on the way down, suggesting that it would try to come back a little bit farther. It did. It's coming back in to test again that support zone. Stayed in the support zone tonight, so that's actually a good thing. The bar it's testing, or trying to test to the bottom, is the June 5th bar, 44.87. Almost got to that bottom, not quite. We may see it try to push down there in the morning. That would be the test, and that would give us some inclination as to whether this thing's going to hold or not. If it doesn't hold, you actually get an ABCD structure to the downside. It's not a big one, but it is one. It would take us down to that swing point low. If it holds, of course, all bets are off. You've got some sort of a range and general trend still up, so you would think it would try to work back to the upside. That's the CACs, and that actually Europe was the weakest other than Hong Kong overnight, and that was because the manufacturing flash PMI numbers in Europe contracted, especially in France. Expanded a little bit in Germany, but Germany couldn't do anything about it as a result of general European weakening. We've seen Draghi come out, make his pitch as to what he's going to do. That had its effect initially, but these markets, since he's talked, and since it became known that he was going to do what he's going to do, they're still in a range. They haven't broken higher. They haven't put on the next range yet. And so the real question is will they do that? We had big volume Friday here. That was a down day. It looked like we were going to get a little bit more drift in. Volume here today compared to that big bar it was testing into, not there. This also, like the CACs, although in better shape than the CACs, looks like it's going to try to hold and flip back around. The FTSE has been having a hard time as a result of the idea that the pound is going to continue to get stronger as the QE is going to come to an end. And so you have the potential for some sort of an ABCD structure to the downside if this thing starts to break. You had one swing point break here, you had another one there, but the fact that it came straight back up tells you that it's not quite as weak as one would think, because that should play down 2 to 3 bars, or at least sideways. It didn't, so I think you have more of a large range trade than some sort of a breakdown at this particular point in time. Okay, looking elsewhere, let's go over and take a look at the gotta get my symbols here. I can't think of it. HSCE, I believe. Nah, that's not it. I want to go to Asia. Bear with me a second. Let me get my symbols up. Sometimes my mind works, sometimes it doesn't. FCHI, that's what I'm looking for. So this is the Hong Kong market. Hong Kong came off. Let's see what kind of volume they had. So they also trying to test in the June 5th bar. So in many cases that was kind of the breakout move. That low is 44.87. Didn't quite hit it, doesn't have the volume. This does look like it's going to hold as well. And let's see what the China proper looks like, because China proper, you know, even though the manufacturing numbers were good, this didn't do so well and came back pretty good. So we're not getting, yeah, the big cap shares got hit pretty hard. We're not getting the follow through, even with the Chinese manufacturing economic numbers looking better. You're not seeing the kind of follow through because the worries about the property market is what's killing these, especially Hong Kong. Hong Kong has a lot more exposure than Shanghai itself. 1022. So you got under it, stayed under it. You did 2.027. So you don't have the volume. Yeah, this looks like, even though it's an ugly bar, it looks like it is going to find some support down here and probably flip back around, or at least go sideways for a while. So this is potentially the biggest problem out there in overseas markets, I believe. You know, we'll have to monitor that. Elsewhere, about the same. Not much else changed overseas. I didn't see much of anything else to look for. All right, let me see what kind of questions you folks have, and let me see if any were emailed into me or texted, and we'll try to deal with all these right quick. Actually, we have plenty of time, so we'll deal with them slowly tonight. Okay, no text message. Let's see about the email, and nothing yet there, so let's go back up to the boards. So Tommy says LABA is pulling back more on a possible political move on the trade bank. Okay, so BA we looked at once before. Let's take a look at it and see what it looks like today. All right, so yeah, so it was coming into that bar. I don't remember what I said last time, but I probably said something to the effect of, you know, see how it tests into this bar. And it tested into it 3 or 4 times, it looks like. It actually got into it pretty good on June 18th. But today it's into it, right? Volume's not bad. So again, I think that if you get, now that it's into it, one of two things can happen. If it stays into it tomorrow, right, or digs a little deeper, it's going to get to the bottom. If it gets to the bottom, it probably isn't going to have the volume. And so I would be looking for that bottom as potentially the buy point finally. 129.33. Let's see what the daily, the weekly looks like. Yeah. Yeah, so your support over here starts at about 120. Let's see what the number is here. 126 roughly. And then you have the one that it's coming into now, 131. So it's already into that one. So the weekly, there's nothing much on the weekly to say it's going to go that deep or not. I think your real test is right here. So that's the test. If you can't stay down in this bar tomorrow, this is probably all the pullback you're going to get for now. If it does stay in or starts to dig deeper, then I think you get that test at that low of the 23rd, which is 129.33. And unless volume expands there or it just simply gets under it on price, that's probably the spot. Now, do note, a lot of times things line up so they're more dangerous than not. There's 2 swing points here. So if this does break, right, it can get a faster move down. And if you go and you think about it from this other perspective, and the B point is here, right, that does say it can get a larger move down, which is where? To about where that support is on the weekly. So if you're going to take the trade in here, if it sets up and looks like it is the trade, you just put your stop right up underneath it and you don't give it anything. Because otherwise you're giving a risk away for another 2 or 3 points. Unless it's only 1%, but if you're not willing to take another % hit on it, depends on what your time frame is on the trade. GPSC is the doji today, the end of the current ABCD. So on the S&P 500, the question is the doji bar today, is it the end of that ABCD structure? And no, it isn't. If you count it the way I count it, that ABCD structure actually goes up much higher. It did finish off last week a monthly ABCD structure about 1954. This actually pretends up to like 2022, which I don't think is that believable right now. I think the better number is in the other indexes. This is just a number that if these things do travel up far enough, then that becomes the target. But right now, I don't pay that much attention when it's that far away. And you have almost all the other indexes with much shorter runs to get to their ABCD structures. There's the A point is here. I'll just mark them out for you. A point is here, this bar. The B point actually ended up. Yeah, see, we never got one here. We just never got a B point. Some people would call that a B point, but to me it's not, because you never got a lower low, lower high. So the B point was here, C point there. So when you travel from there to there, back down, right, that's way off the chart. And so right now, I don't think this ABCD structure offers you much. If in fact this thing climbs another 20, 30 points, then all of a sudden it really does become a target. And at that point, you'd probably see the other indexes set up, and this one set up some sort of a nested ABCD structure. But that's a ways off, and you just have to kind of ignore it for now. If you look at the CAC 40 for the Hong Kong market via mistake. Oh, I looked at the CACs. Oh, did I? Let's go look at it again. So it's HSI, right? Let me pop it up. Yeah, I guess I did, huh? Well, thanks for calling that out, because this chart does look a little different than what I just looked at. So it got to the highs, right? Gave it up. Oh, this is interesting. Did it get the high or not? 23.33.97. Didn't quite get there. So it doesn't leave volume at the top because it doesn't get to the top. So it's more like volume off the top, which is not a good thing. But you are coming back into the big bar. This one looks like the Shanghai index we looked at. The low here is 22,734. You got 27 million on it, and you're doing 20 on the way back. So just like Hong Kong, just like the H shares, this probably is going to find support here and try to get some sort of a bounce. It did break 2 swing point lows. So just like we looked at with the I forget what, I think it was the, I don't know, we just looked at one, right? They had 2 swing point lows broke, and it didn't get any follow through. I think it was one of the sectors. This has the same thing, right? You broke one here and you broke one up here. So when you do that, right, that sets up 2 to 3 bars extension, and that extension can be, you know, farther down or just kind of meander here before it comes back up. So this will be a good one to watch. A good one to watch, and does it extend, or does it find support here as it comes into this area? And I wouldn't be surprised that it finds support right there, because you got a lot here. I mean, just look at what you got there. Thanks for bringing that up. I totally missed the fact that I was looking at the wrong index. You got a lot of support there. I suspect it's going to find support, and that would be potentially the 2 to 3 bar extension. Next question: do you still see a push up to the end of June? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. You know, the thing about markets, even though you can get a fill in neoclassical, there's only some of the reads that give you targets, right? They give you measures. Some of them give you time measures, some of them give you value measures, but some of them don't. And so, like the question, do I see a push up into the June? I do see that this market's probably going to try to squeeze higher the rest of this, you know, the next 5 trading days, which is the remainder. But the market's already gone up, you know, 7 days in a row. So if you ask me, you know, how far will this thing go? You know, I think that's going to be hard. I mean, we may go 5 more points. We may go 20 more points. That's really a wild card, and I don't know the answer to that. And given the fact that we've pushed as we have, and we got a doji today, and we've got 2 small signals suggesting a little bit more pressure, and now that we've looked at the foreign markets, we know that China and Europe probably going to have a little weakness overnight. I could see us trying to pull back a little bit tomorrow, and then the question is do they buy that and set up another little ABCD structure? And if they do, then again you could get a decent push into the end of the month. So yeah, I'm still positive. I don't see anything negative out of here at all. I mean, in a larger way, it's just consolidation. You've had a huge run, folks. I mean, we're going from 1864 to 1954. We're up 100 points again. You know, that's a big move. It's not small, and it's a big move in a year of no moves, because if you look at most of these, they're up 2%. You know, if I go over to the Russell, it's up 2% over the year, and it's already had a big move, right? 2 nested ABCD structures, not nested, but 2. You know, one after another, and it hasn't finished off the second one, but it's trying, and it's run into, you know, what should be resistance for it. So, you know, you get big moves. Yeah, maybe we've seen most of the pressure in the June. I don't know. I do not see anything that worries me greatly yet. If we get some sort of a structure that starts to show more potential for pullback, you know, then we might want to be a little bit more careful. But right now, I think you just hold your, I think you hold your guns, and you stick with what you came with, and you see what it works out to be. And if you have a decent mix, you're probably making money, because today the majority of the stocks were up. So I think that's where they ended. They were up in general. Okay, let's see here. What else? I think that's about it. Let me check back and see if there's anything else I need to cover. And I don't see so. So, you know, my take is the same. Market looks okay. Got a little bit of a, you know, sideways move today. Really didn't go anywhere. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of an attempt to push it down a little bit tomorrow. But I don't know if they're going to take it too far. All right, folks. I thank you for being here. Take care of yourself. Have a great night. And I'll see you next time. Until then, I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily TA wrap. Have a great night and take care.